perishable is such a produce where if it is not handled properly, the quality of the produce gets affected, and ultimately the loss is of the farmer whose produce is there and the exporter, and finally the importer who receives the cargo at the destination point, and finally the quality of the produce which goes to the consumer, and that basically affects the brand image of the country.
The Middle East hub from India is say 2.5, 3 hours away or maximum 4 hours away. If you draw a parallel from Chennai to Delhi, same flying distance. So if I were to connect cargo coming from Chennai or Hyderabad, pharmaceuticals, seamlessly, without breaking it down, without screening it again, I would be able to give the same value proposition, which is immediate connectivity, tail-to-tail transfers to all my customers. So we are kind of victims of our own policy structure.
You need to work as a collaborative unit to ensure that the overall logistic chain, from the manufacturing to the time it reaches the consumer, is overall the most efficient in terms of the delivery time and the cost. If you're able to do these two things, automatically the volumes will grow. Automatically there will be a larger slice for all on the table, and all of us will gain from it.
The two big programs that you've probably heard about are LDB and FASTag. So that's road transportation, that's containers. There's no air-based national program yet. I haven't heard of one.
Pleasure to be moderating this session, because after Glenn's presentation and the speakers who spoke in the inaugural session, I thought it was very apt to have this session. And I'm fortunate to have very good panelists. Pradeep, who is the founder of ACFI and has done multiple roles, and his heart is close to cargo. So I had requested Yash that we should have Pradeep. Pradeep, thank you for coming in. For most of you who may not know, but I and Keku know that Dr. Sudhanshu to get onto a panel has never been easy. Sudhanshu ji has finally agreed. I was nervous till the time Pranav told me that he's arrived. If the perishable industry has to thank one person, honestly, from the EPEDA side and from his inputs, is Dr. Sudhanshu. Pleasure to have you clearly. I'll want a bigger round of applause for Dr. Sudhanshu. I'll come to the lady in the last, but I think Kunal, in his various avatars and now in his new avatar in the new Air India's role, Kunal, a pleasure to have you, and actually you should be moderating the session because your voice on is a competition to many, and if people didn't know that he has an hidden talent other than doing cargo movement, and maybe we get to see that some of it as well. Today, the whole day, you will notice that technology is one thing which is either keeping us on the toes or income tax is keeping us on the toes. These are two IT things which always worry me. But I think if women are driving technology, trust me, it's more trustworthy than any other technology that we can see. And we are happy to have Sadika here among us, who will be basing on the various trends that are revolutionizing air cargo industry. So I think we have a very good panelist on this topic of air cargo business Galvanizer. And the reason why we wanted to have this session and for the clarity of everyone, I'll come to it, but I think what I'll request the tech team is to play the theme video. you. We thought it was good to have videos before we start any panel discussion to get the context right. So without further ado, I will go straight to Pradeep, and you would have seen that we've changed the format of the panel discussion. Traditionally, it would have been one where people would be sitting in chairs, but we got the other part of it because Yash himself is very passionate about standing and doing it. So this is a suggestion that came up. And so I'll come to Pradeep. We know that India is growing rapidly. There's no denial about it. We are seeing the growth of the passenger traffic constantly growing, airports getting to their blink and expanding, and Hyderabad themselves has done a lot of expansion. What is that is hindering air cargo really, if you think, if we have to take it to the next level? And how can we use the belly capacity to the fullest, because with so many aircrafts coming up, what are the opportunities? So maybe you want to throw some light, Pradeep.
Thank you, Satish, and good morning to all of you. It's a great pleasure to be here today. It's very aptly said that, the passenger traffic has actually been going through the roof. In fact, last Saturday, Hyderabad clocked 75,000 passengers. That's the highest ever. I mean, you compare pre-COVID, post-COVID, on a single day, 75,000 passengers is a huge number. And before this, the last highest number was around 71,000. We did in December 19. So 75,000 is a big number by that standard. Now, in terms of cargo, although it was growing well in the beginning of the last financial year, we experienced a slowdown primarily because of the slowdown in the global economy per se, and also various other challenges which were coming through. And there was a degrowth during the second part of the year. That's what we have experienced during the last year. Now, having said that, your question is, how do you fill up the belly? How do you actually bring in more cargo? Even today, as you speak, in terms of the percentage of volume, air cargo is just a minuscule part of the overall scheme of things in terms of overall cargo and logistics. One thing you should, of course, ACFI, what Yash and many other people have already said is the intent or the idea behind ACFI is to integrate various people to collaborate and increase the overall efficiency of the system, thus that the cargo itself becomes much more faster and efficient. And we have seen a lot of work happening in this front from the government front, also various things. But overall, finally, any product which is in the market, the person who uses it has to see value in it. If there is no value, you may actually say that it's a very shining, gleaming thing. But bottom line is, cargo doesn't talk or say anything particularly. Cargo moves with the route which gives the least resistance and which is the maximum value addition possible. So if you are able to create value addition for the customer, there was a very good example Glenn put forth, Canadian pork. Where the value addition was there, automatically, therefore, the cargo moved. So cargo will move into phases wherever. You may have belly space which is lying empty, but if it is not going to add value to the cargo which is traveling through it, there is no way it's going to come through that facility. Be it your best cargo terminals, be your best freight forwarders, anything. So the movement will happen so long as you are able to create value for the customer. The customer should see value. That's what my limited point is, if I would like to leave it here. And the other thing is about collaboration. When I was initially part of the board of ACFI, and one thing which we should keep talking about is, how do you, compete? You're not actually competing. The two producers in a country are not competing, or the two freight forwarders are not competing. It's a system competing with another system. If your system is inefficient compared to a Vietnamese system where the producer, the shipper, the freight forwarder is competing with, or the Chinese system which is actually competing with you, you will lose as a system. And if you lose as a system, the slice of the cake which you get will be smaller. So effectively, you need to work as a collaborative unit to ensure that the overall logistic chain, from the manufacturing to the time it reaches the consumer, is overall the most efficient in terms of the delivery time and the cost. If you are able to do these two things, automatically the volumes will grow. Automatically there will be a larger slice for all on the table, and all of us will gain from it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pradeep, on bringing out those points of customers seeing value, collaboration, system, and then the slice of the cake going up. Now, coming to the aspect of slice of the cake and perishables is one subject that comes up in every presentation that we talk. That India has not been able to really put up the type of volumes that maybe Kenya like country has done or Thailand has done in the past. EPIDA has done a lot of initiatives. What is that you would expect from us as air cargo industry that we should be doing to help the farmers, because that is also the dream of the government? Two is that if the farmers are helped and they are able to sell, then all of us here are able to get some bit of the slice, because the current slice is, I would say, too small in anyone's sort of it. So maybe your thoughts on it, Dr. Sudhanshu.
Thank you, Satishji. First, let me congratulate the ACFI for organizing such a wonderful program where all the civil aviation industry leaders are there. And I am really feeling glad to among all of you. And as you said about because the perishable plays an important role, and India is an agrarian economy, and where the movement of perishable, whether it is in the domestic market or the global market. Why I am saying domestic market also? Because India is such a vast country for movement from one place to another, where the by road transport takes time. So with the regional airports, the connectivity to the metros plays a crucial role when we talk about from the export perspective. It really becomes important when the overall supply chain needs to be strengthened. So as per the expectations from the perspective of an exporter or the farmer producer organization, the better services at the airport, and when we say at the airport, all the services, starting from landing at the airport, handling of the cargo, the skilled professional manpower, the plant quarantine station, who basically issue the quarantine certificate, customs part, and finally putting at the aircraft. Because why I am telling all these points, until unless these all the loose ends are plugged in, because perishable is such a produce where if it is not handled properly, the quality of the produce gets affected, and ultimately the loss is of the farmer whose produce is there, and the exporter, and finally the importer who receives the cargo at the destination point, and finally the quality of the produce which goes to the consumer, and that basically affects the brand image of the country, because ultimately when it reaches to the consumer, when say that it's produce of India, and the produce of India, if the quality of the produce has got affected due to any reason, due to any loose end in the supply chain, that is going to affect. So the ultimate responsibility becomes of all these stakeholders, where the major part is to be looked after, where the service providers or the stakeholder, whether it's a private one or the government one, they need to strengthen the overall system so that finally the product reaches of good quality, whether it's a fruits or vegetable or the floriculture, flowers. So ultimately when it reaches to the consumer, it reaches with a good quality, and the brand India logo, which basically needs to be further strengthened with all these efforts. That's my delimited point.
Very good inputs. I think you touched upon domestic, international, regional connectivity, the importance of farmers getting their due share, and the seamlessness at the airport as well, and the brand image of India. I think these are very strong messages that have come out, and probably I'll come back later to Pradeep to address those. But I think the critical thing that happens is that air cargo industry has been one where there has been always a lack of visibility from end to end, and that continues to remain a problem. And there are so many technologies that have been coming up and a lot of new trends that are coming up. Probably someone like Sadhika can keep talking about so many aspects that have come up now, because we're talking about chat GPTs, we're talking about IoT, we're talking about robotic process automation and the rest of them. So maybe, Sadhika, maybe what the air cargo industry can really adopt, because like what Sudhanshu said, the farmer is not really the one who knows everything about technology, but he wants his product visibility and his recovery of what he has saved sort of it. Maybe you can give some insights in terms of what we can do as an industry.
So technology is a very demand and supply based initiative. It's driving demand, it's also helping you supply better. If we, people of course have talked a lot about all of the digital initiatives that the government has taken. The two big programs that you've probably heard about are LDB and FASTag. So that's road transportation, that's containers. There's no air-based national program yet. I haven't heard of one. And I'm sort of an unbiased party here because I'm not from any particular industry other than technology. The other thing that's interesting to notice is on the container side, there are about 100 plus ICDs, freight stations, air freight stations. I know of 2. Are there more? Anyone
No.
in the audience? There is definitely a gap on the air cargo side, and I think that there is a lot of these gaps that can be filled in with technology. From a customer's point of view, there's an insatiable appetite for knowledge and for information. Everyone wants to know where their stuff is at all points of time. So these days, everyone wants to put air tags on their luggage so that they know exactly where their bags are going to be when they're being loaded on a plane. We talked about monitoring for perishable cargo. You want to know exactly the temperature at which whether it's any kind of agricultural produce or a pharma product that's traveling, you want to know exactly the temperature conditions it's been through. We also talked a little bit about collaboration, again something where technology plays a part. So I would say in general there are 5 aspects that technology can address that can really help boost the air cargo industry. So the first being visibility, end-to-end visibility, being able to get to know, give that information to your customer, having that information yourself, where is my stuff? The second is monitoring. So using, IoT or sensors to be able to tell if my stuff is in good condition. So being able to measure temperature, being able to measure humidity, being able to measure light, things that people really care about. The third part is security. Is my stuff safe? So if I'm transporting high value goods, I want to make sure that my stuff is safe. So having security is like the third aspect. The fourth comes on the supply side. It's automation. How can I reduce the amount of effort or reduce my cost that it takes? So whether that's in entering data, that's in moving items, it's understanding how we can save costs. That all comes through automation. And then the fifth pillar for technology, of course, then becomes analysis. How can I do better decision making? That's what it all comes down to. So being able to plan, and I think that logistics and supply chain, one of the biggest things that have come up for the industry as a whole over the last few years is that we've made very reactive decisions. Things happen and then we react. And I think that the whole point of technology is being able to make more proactive decisions, being able to see the trends before things get bad and make better decisions. So I feel like technology can address these 5 aspects that can really help the air cargo industry.
Brilliant, Sadhika. I think for some of us who are tech savvy like Kunal, whom I'll come in a bit, but I think visibility is still a pain area, surely. And I think it's the time that if, like what Pradeep said, if you want to show value, I think the ocean freight industry is really moved fast in this aspect. They get very good tracking visibility as far as container temperature. If people didn't know something called as the RCM. Monitoring is something which is there already in the pharmaceutical industry. Maybe Dr. Ravi Prakash Mathur, who's speaking later, will talk about it. And automation and analysis. I think these are critical subjects that air cargo should really look at if we want to galvanize it further. So now let me go to Kunal, because Kunal worked with Middle Eastern carriers too, coming back to his hometown now. And we heard Piyush Srivastava talking about the great big investment by Air India in terms of the capacity, and Ramesh is also here. What is in store for us as, a stakeholder with now India becoming an epicenter for air cargo?
Thank you, Satish. First of all, thank you for having me on the panel, and also to ACFI. It's a great opportunity. It gives goosebumps to be standing here back in your own country and serving the country and serving the national carrier. So I take pride in that. We've all heard about the 470 aircraft orders that Air India has placed with Boeing and Airbus. This means there is acceleration. We are serious about how we want to develop both the passenger and the cargo side of the business. And 70 out of those aircrafts are wide bodies, which are cargo friendly. Some of the things that I've heard from Jivisha ji and Piyush ji in the earlier discussion was about creating regional pipelines, right, within the country. What we also heard was the value system that you spoke about, Pradeep, some time back, the Chinese system, the Vietnamese system. So I want to really kind of shake you guys up and invite you to introspect. We want to develop these regional corridors. We want to have regional pipelines. But are we ready for it really? As an airline, I don't think so. Let's take the example of a value proposition, what a Middle East carrier brings, right? The Middle East hub from India is, say, 2.5, 3 hours away, or maximum 4 hours away. If you draw a parallel from a Chennai to Delhi, which is Delhi is the Air India hub, if you draw a parallel, it's the same distance, same flying distance. So if I were to connect cargo coming from a Chennai or a Hyderabad, pharmaceuticals, seamlessly, without breaking it down, without screening it again, I would be able to give the same value proposition, which is immediate connectivity, tail-to-tail transfers to all my customers. So we are kind of victims of our own policy structure, or of our own regulatory framework, which is stopping us from going ahead. So we want to accelerate 4 steps ahead, but there are regulatory frameworks, Satish, which is actually pulling us 2 steps behind. So if we can tackle the whole thing about rescreening, about BUPs to be allowed from India, known shipper concepts, so on and so forth, we can really move forward in a great way. So I feel that while we talk about acceleration, we talk about collaboration, I think we need to address the regulatory framework very, very seriously as well.
Thanks, Kunal. I was about to ask Pradeep the same thing, that aircrafts are coming, airports are looking much more beautiful, cold chain terminals are being done, government is doing it. But on the ground, if end of the day we are going to have a dwell time which is much longer, especially if you're saying perishable should come D-5 or D-6, and then the custom process takes 12 to 13 hours. Are we really saying that we are moving forward, or are we moving backward a few years? Second is, even after we got independence and still we can't build our own pallets, and if a perishable exporter can't put his own cargo into it, are we saying we are making 10 steps forward or backward? Your views on it?
Well, it's a topic we can keep discussing the whole day about. No, I think there are concerns. We are all aware of the security issues which we have in the country, and there are definitely methods to overcome them, and various countries have already done with these steps. So it's a matter of perhaps putting forth these examples, and like we have just been saying as a panel, there is a need for us possibly to, get the buy-in of the people and tell them that you can achieve this level of safety or security or whatever else you want. And, it's possible, given various other intelligence systems are possible, technology is available. There are so many possibilities, so as not to become a laggard. These policies or these kind of things can actually pull you down, and the overall system efficiency comes down. And if system efficiency comes down, like the APIDA is just saying that if the food is not able to reach the table fresh, there's no value left on that product. I mean, we as well not send products out of India rather than actually send something which is fresh at the source but stale at the plate. So those are the things which we'll have to work on, wherever we are losing time as a system. We need to perhaps streamline it. I'm not saying that all the fault is only with the statutory authorities. There are a lot of flaws even with us, if you see the airports, the airlines, and the freight forwarders. So there are still pockets where we do get trapped, possibly because of lack of information. Maybe IT will help us to get, and the various gadgets now which are available to get the visibilities. Technology is now becoming more and more economical. It's possible to keep a track and give that visibility to the person who's producing the product, and the person who's actually buying the product. Once that visibility, that strength comes into their arms, you will see that whoever is an inefficient person, the weakest link in the chain will have to break, and new chains will be formed. That's how it will slowly give the confidence that we are also competing with the industry.
No, good. I think you rightly said that this could be a subject that we all can keep talking for days together. But I think as ACFI has one pillar, that process simplification that we are talking about, this is something which, including the transshipment, and we can discuss. Well, let me get to Dr. Sudhanshu, is that you get to speak to a lot of people, and in the perishable industry, one of the biggest challenges is that you don't see large shippers like a Zara, Inditex, or anyone who is very knowledgeable in terms of building it and all. Is there something that we as air cargo industry can do in terms of creating more awareness of what best packing solutions that they can be done for air cargo industry? Because today you have a chargeable weight on your containers which is there for perishable, and that actually kills the whole game, unfortunately, for a product like Babycon as an example today, which is a success story to the UK. What are those 3 or 4 things that you think could have happened but have not happened for the perishable industry? Because I see that rest of the countries are able to get the scale. What I mean by scale is today someone like a country like Kenya can put a 747 out of Nairobi into Amsterdam or into London. But even with the Krishi UDAAN program that we're talking about, I'm sure half the people on this room would not even know the benefit of Krishi UDAAN, unfortunately. So maybe your thoughts is that, what is that we are not doing to galvanize it further?
Thrown a very good question, which will, I think, summarize the whole issues in the supply chain. I very well feel that there is a scope for a entity in terms of a service provider who can basically provide the skill development or providing sufficient knowledge about starting from the nature of the produce, how it is to be handled at each end. One. Second, what has gone wrong and what could have been done to make it better. The infrastructure part. Country is blessed with production clusters of potential fruits, vegetables and flowers. The right kind of infrastructure in terms of, for example, just going to the farm field, the collection centers or the pack houses where the produce can be brought, consolidated, processed, pre-cool, putting in the cold storage, then sending to the exit point, whether to the airport or the seaport. Second is the right kind of infrastructure at the airport or nearby airport. Suppose I am an exporter, I am sourcing my produce from a particular point, bringing it to the airport. If the airport doesn't provide the facility for storing it properly, so for example, there is a time gap of 6 or 7, 8 hours if the flight gets delayed, the proper cold chain facility is required. And third part is in terms of packaging, because packaging plays a very crucial role in increasing the shelf life of a product. There are packaging solutions which can enhance the shelf life. I would like to cite an example where we stand and what we can do, which is not directly related to the air cargo industry. India is one of the leading producer of mangoes, variety of mangoes, Alfonso, Kesar, Banganpalli, which are exported by air. And we are not able to ship are able to send by sea, and that is the reason we are not able to send huge quantity of mangoes by sea. The reason being we don't have the proper sea protocol. What protocol is? Protocol is depending on how much is the transit time, how much is the voyage time, and that applies on even by air also. For example, suppose it has to travel, it has to reach US. From farm field to up to reaching to the consumer, if it takes 5-6 days, it is to be decided at what maturity index the produce is to be harvested. Then it is to be pre-cooled. Then the packaging is to be done. Then sending it. So these are the things where basically not a single organization, the multiple stakeholders will have to come together. There will be a role of the agriculture, horticulture institutions, the research institutions, logistics service provider, packaging solution service provider. They will have to sit together and see how we can enhance the shelf life of the product, how our product can reach in a better way to the destination, and finally it reaches to the consumer. These are the 3-4 points I think, and I would like to mention here that the success of every program depends on what all are the takeaways and what all are the recommendations. By organizing such a wonderful program, I would like to request the organizer to come up with some recommendation, one for the industry and second for the government. And I feel that government is very open, and as ease of doing business is the focus, is the priority of the government. If the things are communicated in a better way, I was listening about the regulatory framework. We understand that there are a lot of hurdles are there, there are limitations, but those can be changed. It is only how it is communicated to the government, how the concerned authorities are to be convinced. If this is done, it is going to affect. It is going to make things better. So I feel in the coming days, with the collaboration of the industry with the government, definitely things will improve.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sudhanshu. But with the permission of my president, Yash, I think this is a subject that our task pillars should actually take it up and give our recommendations. Probably this is the right thing that Dr. Sudhanshu brought it up, that for the perishable industry, not the right type of recommendation from an air cargo end. But the reason I'm telling is that we had a specific commodity rate for perishables many years ago. And that was what we learned when we started air cargo industry 30 years. Today, we don't have a specific commodity rate, forget alone, but the perishable industry is probably lacking many more things which we should be taking up as ACFI is what I would request, and something that the board should be considering it. So now let me come to Sadhika. Now that you've heard what we are talking about, is that you can see great amount of problem statements. And I believe that tech comes expensive sometimes, because children studying in foreign universities have to pay a lot of money in terms of to get the technology and the knowledge and the rest of them. But scale is something which technology can, look at, like what happened to the mobile industry when we started at 42 rupees and today we are the sort of it. What is that the industry can do, whether it's air, ocean, road, custom clearance or GSA or any part of it, is that should be adopting really in terms of the air cargo industry, because we are not expert on what computer to buy today or what hardware to install. And our challenge is we hear from someone and listen and try our luck. And this is sometimes like marriage, it may win or it may not win. Okay. So maybe your thoughts on what should we be doing from a tech point of view.
So I will say this, that technology has become really accessible now. It's not as expensive as it used to be. I know there are lots of big companies, legacy systems of Oracle and SAP and all of the different ERPs that people have running, and that's not the norm anymore. There are startups like us, and we've made technology cheap and accessible. The very first thing that I would basically imagine that would work for air cargo in particular is going to be to have visibility. I think in terms of visibility, other industries and other segments, particularly road transportation, there's a lot more visibility that's easily accessible to people. And e-commerce has changed that norm for that industry in particular. Because everyone in e-commerce, in e-commerce, what the two things that every customer wants was speed and visibility. So they wanted to know exactly when their shipment was arriving. And unfortunately, even on the export e-commerce side, which is a sector that I've been working with for the last 5 years, there isn't as much visibility. And the visibility that's lacking is that air segment. I have visibility when my shipment is going to the airport or going to the nearest air hub, and I can provide that visibility to my customers. It reaches the airport and there's a black hole. I don't know where my shipment is. I don't know which process it's going through. Maybe I'll get an email from someone to say, there is this additional information that's required. Maybe that's like a regulatory hurdle, or maybe through some screening process. And then I get out of the airport at my destination country, and then I have visibility again. So there's definitely this lack of visibility that's there in this airspace, in this airport, which has become sort of like an isolated bubble almost. And I know that there are a lot of digital systems inside, so I don't say that there is no digitization that's happened there. Everyone has, every company, every operator functioning in that ecosystem has a digital system, but that's your own. Creating those connections and most importantly, opening up that visibility to other service providers that are feeding into that air ecosystem is going to be really important to do. So that, because that's what the expectation of the customer is now. They want to know exactly everything about their shipment at all times. That's the new norm. So till we can't enable that visibility for that, and make it really easily accessible for that customer, not like they have to log in somewhere. Nobody likes to log in to things anymore. Everyone wants, for example, ChatGPT is so popular these days, and the reason is because nobody even wants to search on Google anymore. They don't want to read multiple different sources. They want to type in a question, and they want a perfectly collated argument or statistic or essay to be given to them in a single click. Nobody wants to read 3 different sources to arrive at that information. So that accessibility of information needs to be super user-friendly and super accessible for the end customer, and that's what's needed. So I would say the very first thing for air cargo is going to be to make that information very easily accessible to the people who are actually using that facility. And then the second aspect, I think, is when it comes down to is how do you get more cost competitive? That cost competitiveness or efficiency comes through automation. So if you have information systems that are in silos, digital silos, everyone's running their own system and everyone's running their own thing, then you can't get to that efficiency. So I think the second aspect would be to try and create connections and collaborations between those systems. And then the very third, which is everyone talks a lot about the regulatory hurdles that come up in air cargo. And I think that there's been a lot of digital initiatives that have helped ease regulations in other parts. So container trade and road transportation both, there's been a lot of digital initiatives that have happened that have eased the regulatory burden. I think in air cargo, similar digital initiatives are needed, whether that's in terms of cargo screening or transshipments or bonded movement, that can really help ease up some of that regulatory burden as well.
Can I just add something to the visibility part, if you may allow me, Satish?
Go ahead, because I was coming to you with another brilliant question, so no worry.
So we actually matched the dress code this morning, Satish and I. Digital twins. No, so on the topic of visibility, for time immemorial, the air cargo industry has been very reactive. It's always been a very push information. So if I were to give you this pencil and you were to take this from me, you would actually take this pencil, go to your desk, key in that I've received this pencil from Kunal. Yeah, that's how it worked. But a lot of airlines now are investing in tech and process improvements where if I were to give you this pencil, they will upfront create a route map and say that, Sadhika should have received this pencil from Kunal by so-and-so time. Why hasn't she not received it? And then there's a proactive alert that goes down upstream to alert people that there is something, a milestone that is missing. So a lot of airlines are now investing in such technology where they can actually, rather than being reactive, become proactive and give this information to the customers or manage the supply chain a lot more better. A lot more work has to be done in this area, but it started in the right direction.
Thanks. So the reason that, Kunal, I wanted to come back to you was that this is a topic which has been close to my heart, pharmaceuticals. And you know that speed is the essence to get your medicines to your patients. Sudhanshu spoke about the fruits quality and the rest of them being very, very critical. India is still very different in the way that you don't have standardization in the air cargo industry in terms of unit load devices. You don't have standardization in everyone using a 40 feet because you can't get a 40 feet container into Mahipalpur and get it out. And if you have to get a CAPA report today out from any of my airline friends, it can take anywhere between 30 days to someone says 60 days sort of it. I being a little critical, but I'm saying is with technology being there and you being a fan of technology, Can't this be automated? Because Sadhika has been talking about it. Today you get a pathology report which is automated automatically. You put your blood sugar level and you know what it is and you get your... Why can't that be done to speed up things?
Absolutely. So I think the example that I just quoted and just shared with Sadhika is a good segue into the answer to your question. Is how can we become more proactive and manage the alerts, right, that we need to be preempted with. So if I am expecting a pharmaceutical movement, what are the milestones that I can already map? What is it that I expect during the journey on the land side, on the air side, in the air? I've also done a proof of concept with some of the big aircraft manufacturers on having readers or having through ACARs messaging on temperature control or temperature information from the cabin to ground, because ACARS has a bandwidth which allows you to send twice or thrice in the lifetime of the flight messages to the ground, where one can say that hold 1 has this much temperature, which can be converted to the application of the airline and sent to the customer, saying that your shipment is flying over this country at so much altitude, at this temperature and humidity. But of course, these are proof of concepts which need to materialize, which need to take shape and see the, see it in real life. But as I said, we need to do more proactive proof of concepts, like I just mentioned. This is happening already. I know a few airlines who have already started creating these proactive route maps, irrespective of pharma. I know your question was around pharmaceuticals, because that's very, very critical. But otherwise as well. What do I expect, say D-6, what do I expect D-4, what do I expect arrival after arrival 4 hours? And has it happened? If it's not happened, why has it not happened? And I see a lot of improvement already from my experience in this area.
No, good. I think
In fact, just to add, in one of my experiences, one of the Middle East airlines was able to carry pharma seamlessly with 50 degrees temperature soaring in summer. So that's kind of already testimony to the fact that if you have technology, if you have your right processes, and they work well, things can be different.
No, brilliant. So what I'll do is that I'll come to the last bit of it, because we've had 2 rounds of discussions clearly, is that if God had given one wish to the panelists, what would be that they would want to implement in the air cargo industry to really boost up things? Starting with Pradeep and then to Sudhanshu.
Playing God, huh? No, actually, I mean, I would love if that the cargo grows faster than passenger, because I mean, it's been a oft stated or a cliched statement that what happens to cargo happens to passenger later, because or any other part of the industry later. I mean, cargo has always been the one which actually shows the trend of future things to come. And even during the COVID, the cargo was moving, and we knew this, that the passengers will be back. Now the passengers are back, but cargo has got slightly dented, and I have my apprehension that we should not see the passenger numbers also start getting dented. But keeping that aside, so I mean, from the perspective of our own vested interest as an industry to get a larger share of the slice, but also with the various efforts which have been going into nation building. I mean, once our products, which are actually be it Make it India or Grown in India, starts reaching out to the various corners, we get significant amount of economic benefit for the people of the country, and also the soft power which comes in. So it's important that we do not become the roadblocks to this as an air cargo industry. Many people have said that we are a black box through which the cargo goes. We should become more visible, and we should be the pioneer. I mean, the basic idea of ACFI is to enable these things happen, and I'm very sure we are doing, but this is definitely again a point where we are again taking a restock. That's the reason why we are having such conferences. The target is set for us by the industry. They expect us to be more transparent and more, forthcoming with information. Hopefully that information bit will enable us to grow faster.
Brilliant. Dr. Sudhanshu.
The ultimate target should be everyone knows that the produce needs to be, it should reach in a proper quality as per the expectation of the buyer or the consumer. And then what needs to be done, I think that requires a lot of brainstorming. But upfront, I feel there need to be a strong feedback mechanism. But it needs to be thought of at what level and who will take the responsibility. And today's world, the kind of IT advancement and the panelist who mentioned about, I think it is doable. And I would like to just, though time is short, India piloted the first traceability, IT-based traceability system. Incidentally, it was grounded by APIDA in 2006-07. There was a story when the Indian grapes were publicized as poisonous. And we implemented a traceability system after doing brainstorming with all the stakeholders. And we were able to generate confidence that because at each level, we were able to provide a complete transparency, and that was having a feedback mechanism. For example, when a grape of a particular produce was sent to the laboratory for testing, if the pesticide residue it was exceeding, immediately the alert was issued to the exporters, don't source from this area. So the system was able to provide feedback at each level, what has gone wrong, at which level, whether at the farm field level or the pack house level or the laboratory level at the time of the quarantine inspection process. So I will not be able to give that this needs to be, but definitely it needs to be brainstorm and a feedback mechanism at any level which can give feedback where things have gone wrong so that the learnings can be taken for the next time the concerned stakeholder can take corrective measure so that it is not repeated again.
Thank you so much. But Sadhika, before I get to you, I think today we saw on the first panel you had 2 women on the stage. On this panel, along with Sakshi, we already 2 women at. I think one thing that women can do is to continue shopping because the air cargo industry will continue to be galvanized. So I think we need to look at that aspect is that because Glenn presented about Zara, but I think if Zara is not the men who really drive the economy, but it's that women who drive it. Maybe you give your inputs as well.
My personal wish would be that we've created a lot of digital twins for seaports and road transportation hubs. If any airport in the audience today wants to let me POC a airport digital twin, that would be, I think, a personal wish that I have. But it's just about being able to show the industry globally. You know, people talk again, digital twins, for example, is a technology that I think the air cargo industry can benefit a lot from. Seaports have really adopted that. Not too many examples on the airport side. So if India wants to be, you know, sort of a pioneer in that, happy to do a POC with someone.
Kunal.
Save the best for last, thanks.
Yeah.
So if my wish is going to be in the context of India and Air India, and in context of us competing with many airlines in Europe and Middle East. So my wish is to please ease the transshipment regulatory policy so that we can support the regional economies from far out areas to the metros, use our hubs and help achieve the 10 million metric tons by 2030.
No, absolutely. I think you're spot on and it's good to end on that note. What I'm doing, I'm going to leave the house open for a quick 3 questions before I summarize. I can see
Sure.
2 big hands there. Vipin first and then Sunil. Sunilji, Tushar is here. So do you want me to start from here? Okay.
I have 2 observations. One to Dr. Sudhanshu, sir. I'm happy you mentioned the last grape example, how Indian grape becomes so popular, and it went into the time when European grapes were not available. Why can't we do that with mango? Do we need Sharad Pawar to do that? Right? I think so. The reason probably you have mango so many varieties, and grape was only coming from Nasik. But we as an industry, we run a cargo terminal at Mumbai and Delhi. We handle roughly about 4,500 perishable every month. It goes successfully. It goes in time. The cargoes are clear within 90 minutes upon arrival and loaded into the aircraft. So in terms of efficiency at the airport, I think we have achieved what we need to achieve. Only thing, it's a collaboration. I need to know what is this cone all about. I need to know about what that mirchi, which will come, bhutia mirchi from Assam, what character it is, right? If we have that exchange of, we can do, and I know what was done in the grapes, including packaging. If you remember, sulfur dioxide was coated on the packaging and the grapes. I was involved. I was also involved in the mango project, sir, and we were purging oxygen on the way, on the ship, to controlling that, and we did manage some cargo to go mango. I think so we are, an ACFI, would be ready to come with a scientific recommendation to handle the fruits if we know. Because Daseri is different than Alfonso, right? The one Langda comes is different, Kesar is different. We are ready to learn that knowledge. So I would suggest, second my observation on domestic. I don't know whether it's still part of your responsibility though. I think in the domestic, sir, you have to create a bazaar. What is happening today, a small red banana from Cochin is not able to go to Kashmir. And Kashmir golden apple is not going to Kerala. If you create a barter system, that one truck of banana goes to Kerala and one truck of same truck can bring the banana of the Kerala. And you create an exchange system as a government to give that money or to support them, we will be able to transport at an affordable rate then. If one way I'm sending a truck to Kashmir and one way I'm sending a truck to Kerala, the business is not going to grow. And you know that, sir. Sir, we tried with banana out of Gujarat in Rajpipla. The farmer got tired because his money was not coming. He was happy to sell that in domestic market. So I think we need to create the whole ecosystem if you want to do it. We are playing very little role into the whole game, right? So let's do it together. We are happy to do it. And my next comment to Ms. Kumar. Ms. Kumar, it's not that bad, the way you say. You know, I'm operating this industry since 45 years. We have got a trace and track at our terminal. You bring cargo on mobile app. You type your airwaybill number. It will tell you what temperature your cargo is stored. It will tell you what process it is done. It will tell you when it has gone on tarmac. And the airline will tell you when it has gone on board. So I know we have a problem, but it's not that bad as you describe it. Let me finish. I think so. What you said is very right. We need an integrated platform where everybody can go on platform. We understand air cargo is a relay race. There are different players, right? And if players are feeding information, it is shipper who should be able to get on his mobile. I'm telling you, our Turant app today is so popular with the shipper. They do it on the mobile, tap the waybill number. And as Kunal was mentioning, some of the airlines of the world, including Indian Airlines, right, has been doing. My company, Blue Dart, had pioneered trace and track in this country in 1986. Probably you were not born, right? Even without internet. So don't say that. It's not that bad. Okay, we have to reach to, you know, we are reaching Mangalyaan in cost of small, less than movie of Hollywood. We would be there. But don't make it sound so bad. That was my observation. Sorry.
I am really glad that Tusharji mentioned about, as a professional, he has been a part of the grape success story and mango. And I fully agree. In case of mango specifically, I would like to mention, the country is blessed with so many varieties. The thick skin mango and the thin skin mango, and every mango has its own characteristics. So for an exporter who basically shipping mango, even the exporter is not aware about the characteristics because he sources from farmer. So a collaborative efforts are really required how to handle different variety of mangoes. And the second thing is, I see a lot of scope in some of the meetings also. While COVID time, we were having regular meeting on almost on daily basis. And that time also, I made this suggestion as a proposal that in the production cluster, for example, in Konkan or in this Gujarat Kesar variety clusters, or in Andhra Pradesh or in Telangana or in the UP, Lucknow, Malihabad or Saharanpur, a strategy needs to be built up that this much of produce can be evacuated. And making a system of private chartered flight or the connecting directly to the main airports. So some system where we can definitely plan huge shipment of mangoes. Because even the farmer or the new exporters who want to, recently we implemented a project in Varanasi, where basically Varanasi is a landlocked areas. Two years back, nothing was getting exported. It was a challenge for us. And we set up some FPOs there, farmer producer organization, brought exporters from Mumbai, connected them, started export. I am glad to inform the audience that in a period of 2 years' time, it has crossed 100 metric tons of perishable cargo from Varanasi.
Round of applause for this.
So it is possible,
Excellent.
it is very well possible. So in case of the potential fruits, we have mangoes, we have banana. Banana, India has the abundance of different varieties of banana. But we are not able to ship banana in large bulk loads. So banana of different varieties can be shipped, and we have a lot of scope. We can learn from for example, the Philippines or Ecuador, how the banana giants are there at the international level. We can really play a crucial role. So I fully agree, and I think with your professional experience like Mr. Tushar Jani, definitely if people like you come together at a single platform, try to collaborate, send a proposal to the government, APIDA will be willing definitely to work wherever R&D institution need to be roped in, or the agriculture university need to be roped in. We will be really glad to. And I think with the collaborative efforts of all these stakeholders, we will definitely reach to a stage where we will be able to have large quantity of perishable produce from India to the global market. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sudhanshu.
Clearly, ACFI is a galvanizer. It is the front runner to start. One of the statistics said that even though in volume it's just a minuscule amount that we do, but in value it is 35%. And if that 1% can go to 2%, it is going to drive the whole economy to the next level. And countries have changed in terms of their GDP almost a 6% higher or a 7% higher in the overall scheme of things. A big round of applause for my fellow panelists.